Welcome to the Betsperts Golf DFS Show here at none other than BetspertsGolf.com. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle, joined today for a two-man game. You may know him as the host of the Back Nine Bets podcast, the model maniac perhaps on Twitter, but either way, he is none other than good friend in life, Byron Lindeque. Byron, a soft spot in the schedule as well here for the Valspar tournament, given that we are 2 weeks away from match play and some major golf coming up beyond that.
Correct. That is very true. We got the Masters coming up in April here, and we all kind of building our way up to that. I think the match play is going to be fun. It's going to be like its little last hurrah, kind of like a White Lotus final episode there, and just see who does what in the final match play event of what could be forever, outside of the Ryder Cup and President's Cup. So it's going to be fun.
White Lotus also, which I just finished last week and now understand all of your references, just in case you drop subtle hints throughout the show. No Ron Klos today, unfortunately, as it's just you and I, but we will certainly reference his course preview, some of his model numbers throughout the show. And we obviously start, as I mentioned earlier, here at the Valspar, just 16 of the top 70 players in the world in attendance this week in this field. And as Ron noted in his course preview, I think one of the most important aspects to keep in mind when building for DFS lineups this week is that at this course, more than 70% of approach shots have come from over 175 yards the past 5 years. Last year, also, the average approach shot was 193 yards. And that's because, as you know, Byron, thin fairways, driving accuracy is of the utmost premium this week. What else are you looking for, since bombers in this field, in this course, are basically mitigated and everyone is brought equal off the tee?
Right. So I've used this stat where you go and grab strokes gained off the tee on courses shorter than 7,200 yards. That's typically because you don't want to take a driving accuracy stat, because the bombers are always going to grade out poorly there, but there are bombers that play well on those shorter courses because they can just sizzle a 3-iron 260 yards, So you got to bear that in mind. The water on this golf course is all off the tee, so I'm not necessarily too concerned about guys having issues around the green with water. So looking for a lot of scrambling metrics, a lot of bogey avoidance, looking for around the green play, particularly with how hectic this wind is going to be this week. These green in regulation rates are going to be quite lower than we've seen in the past. And I think, if I was listening to Ron correctly as well, he said that the rough is thicker again this week, I think. And it's going to just be a more challenging golf course. I think they're sick and tired of having these scores at minus 17. I think we'll see it closer to minus 9, minus 12, especially with this wind. So low scoring events as well, and then just good scramblers and good putters in the wind.
To add numbers to what you just said, yes, in fact, the rough is thicker as opposed to previous years, being raised from 3 inches to 3 3/4 inches. So nearly a full inch
that's a lot.
Of rough being added, which is a whole lot considering a lot of approach shots come from the rough at this course. So we're looking at pure iron strikers, or you're looking at pure long iron players as well. And that's kind of where I prioritized my lineup. But with that being said, I just want to get right into the players, because it's an interesting field, as we already mentioned, and pricing is interesting as well. We start at the top in the 10K range. JT all the way up, leading the way on DraftKings at 10-9. Jordan Spieth, who I imagine will be the highest rostered among the 4 players in 5 digits at 10-6. Sam Burns, last year's winner, 10-2, and Matthew Fitzpatrick, even 10K. And the way I have looked at it from the start of the week, Byron, is that I actually don't mind being significantly underweight on the 5-digit players, especially given that I expect JT, Spieth, and for recency bias, Burns to come in slightly more rostered than I want to play them and be overweight on them. So I actually, in the core of my lineups, will probably be ignoring this tier, honestly. But what are your thoughts on that? Who is your favorite player among this range?
Yeah, I love that approach, because in a field like this, where you got that top-heavy kind of situation, you want to get exposure to almost all of these guys if you can, and then, like Ron has mentioned in the past, kind of pick your poison down at the bottom here. I'm a big fan of Jordan Spieth this week. I've got him for an outright at 14-1, and He's won here before. He's played fantastic golf in 4 of the last 5 times he's played here. His last time he did play was 2018. So that ranges from 2013 to 2018. But he's got good course history. His irons have been really trending in the right direction. He's around the green play is one of the best in the field for me. And I love his ability to make birdies once he's missed a green versus just get up and down for par. I think, that's a difference maker for Spieth there. He can absolutely be a lethal weapon when it comes to wedge in his hand. And the putter, since he's come to the West, gone from West Coast to the East Coast, has actually improved by half a stroke in the 2 rounds that he's played in Florida. So a lot of his things are moving in the right direction for me there. And I love the course history too. So the wind stuff as well for Spieth I love him in the wind. I think he's a great.
Do you have a gauge, despite loving him, do you have a gauge on his ownership as of Wednesday afternoon? Because again, I don't mind playing him quite a bit, but that's really my concern here.
Yeah, it's sitting at like 27-ish%. I've got JT at 28, especially with Keegan having withdrew now, I think that's going to even clump up the chalk even more because he was going to be a 15-20% owned guy as well in that range. So that ownership has to go somewhere else now. And I think everyone's going to want to just pick a better player instead. So interesting stuff. There's definitely pivots to be had.
And it is early for weather analysis, but right now what we're seeing is basically from 8A to 2P, we're looking at wind gust of around 13 to 18 miles per hour. And then on Friday, from, first tee around 6:30 in the morning to literally the last one, gusts from anywhere from 17 to 22 miles per hour. And I don't say that to discuss an edge with you on waves of tee times. I say that because if we're talking about a 27% golfer, like this is a clue as how to roster last week, understanding, we talked about it. Jason Day is going to be over rostered, several others. So why chase them in that range whenever the wind is going to naturally knock some of them out of play? And so for a 27% speed, what we're guessing right now on early Wednesday, it's almost with that kind of wind for me, just an easy player to avoid. And I know you love him. I'm sorry, but
no,
gosh, man, I just can't play that into like smaller fields.
No, that's exactly the thing is if I do, I might just love him and just go balls to the wall with Spieth kind of thing, Fair. and then go from there because I'm quite convicted on him this week. And if I'm gonna lose my money this week, it's gonna be on the back of a guy that I really believe in, and I'll have over 50% of my lineup. So that's okay on my behalf there. And with the salary scale going the way it is, I think we can get a few other pivoted guys in there, quite easy.
Is there a player at the top that you would feel most comfortable fading? I still am trying to gauge whether Justin Thomas is going to get the usual John Rahm treatment. And we try to fit a lot of good players from like 8 to 7K range. Thus, what usually happens in tournaments is the highest price guy logically gets knocked down to anywhere from 8 to 11% ownership. Do you think that will happen with JT? And whether that happens or not, do you want to even play JT this week?
I don't, because I just feel like if I'm banking between the two of Spieth and JT, I feel like Spieth's trajectory is on the up, whereas JT's kind of been struggling over the last few weeks. And if I'm going to pick between the two of them, I'm going to go to Spieth. And I think from what I've heard and seen on the internet, JT's really been bona fide as the best player in the field. And I don't know if I typically believe that based off his current form. So I think a lot of people will just be playing him. My model, if it's run over the last year and a half, has him easily as the best player in the field because his baseline is so significantly higher than everyone else, but his recent performances are a little lower. And that's what I'm kind of banking on for that trend to continue with the poor play. Did I answer your question there? I didn't even know.
JT, for what it's worth, did gain strokes across the board last week, except for putting where he was absolutely horrendous. Nonetheless, though, let's move on to the 9K range and lots of options in here. Tommy Fleetwood at the top, 9.8. The first player, Justin Rose, who I, after researching the course and recent form, immediately ran to and put my first outright ticket on Justin Rose this week. Okay. So I can already guarantee you he will be a flag plant play for me in all of my lineups. Keegan Bradley actually out this week. Yeah. Denny McCarthy, 9-3. Adam Hadwin, I saw in Ryan Noonan's outrights article at 9-2. Brian Harmon at 9-1 and Davis Riley at 9K. So where does it begin for you, if anywhere, here?
Yeah. So if I'm starting with my lineup with Spieth, Denny McCarthy, I'll go right to him here. The course history is great. I love his short game. His ball striking is trending in the right direction. Another thing you have to remember after coming out of this Florida swing is Denny hit a ball from like 50 yards out of a bunker into a hazard and lost 2 strokes on approach just because of one shot. So his approach numbers don't necessarily translate to what he's actually been doing on the iron side of things there. So when these Florida swings come in, you have to be cognizant of those situations. And I'm okay capitalizing on a guy that people think is hitting his irons badly, but is actually playing some good golf. I love the course history for Denny and the short game for sure. And then Tommy Fleetwood would be a little more chalky of a pick here. Also great course history. Love him in the wind, love him on shorter golf courses, love him when you have to scramble. So those are 2 guys that I'll be enjoying. Justin Rose sitting just a few percent shy of Spieth and JT in 21%. So talk to me about Justin Rose's ownership. But this is for my ownership projections. I don't know. You've got your own ones too. I'm not sure how you're going to approach Rose.
And my projections, which Ron puts out on Wednesday night, and then I will usually look and sift through and maybe tell him a couple things where I'm hearing the industry lean towards. Have been very volatile for me, admittedly. I've been taking some guesses on lower 7K guys, and I was right last week in getting a lot of players, Tom Hoagie included, at just 5%. Otherwise, though, I have been off a couple weeks. But nonetheless, for me, Justin Rose may still be a player I am very, very high on, even at 19 to 21%. It doesn't breach that 30% range like Jordan Spieth, in my opinion, and also just the fact that when we talk about approach shots and recent form, long approach shots, like Rose is top 20 on tour this year in proximity to the hole, not only from 175 to 200 yards out. And remember, I talked about it at the beginning of the show. Average approach shot for the last 5 years here has been 193 yards, but also top 20 in proximity to the hole from the rough from 175 to 200 yards out. Also playing tremendous, has gained strokes on approach now in 5 consecutive tournaments. So recent form is coming into play as well. So yeah, I love Justin Rose. Again, one of my favorite outright bets here. The issue, as you mentioned with Tommy Fleetwood, is playing these 2 together or playing these 2 with Jordan Spieth, because then you're already soaking up probably 70 to 80% ownership just between 2 guys alone in your lineup. But at the same time, Fleetwood, to your point, is playing awesome. Like around the green, so crucial given how small the greens are at this course. And around the green, Fleetwood hasn't even lost strokes since October. On approach, he has gained strokes in 7 of his last 9 tournaments, and he's only missed the cut once in his last 7 tournaments as well. So everything looking really good for Tommy Fleetwood. Even last week, remember, it was really just the 3 holes into that drastic win, especially when you came up on 17, that he screwed up on the final day. The rest of the day, though, was going really well for him. He was competing till the end of the day.
Yeah. And the putter seems to have, it's starting to like bounce around. It's not just constantly bad. It's like popping, good, average, good, badish, so that's what you like to see from a guy that you're going to want upside from. You don't want just that putter to just be dragging ass through the whole tournament. So I love that aspect of him too, along with everything else you mentioned too.
Moving on to the 8Ks. I know Justin Suh is popping in the models, although I still might play him. Matt McNeely, 8.7. Gary Woodland stands out at 8.6. His putter, which was haunting him to open 2023, is finally rounding into form these past few weeks. Brandon Wu at 8.5. Ben Griffin, I imagine, will be very popular given his recent play at 8.4. Anyone else stand out to you, or who pops for you really in the 8K range?
Yeah. Maverick McNeely. I love what he's looking like. If he's going to be sitting at 6-7% ownership here, sign me up for Mav. He's the best putter on tour right now, since the calendar year. great short game. A shorter golf course, I think you can take it. When I say shorter, I'm not saying like he's going to be requiring absolute length off the tee. He's going to be hitting those irons into the fairways, but better than he normally does. And just the ability to scramble with everybody having to scramble much more in this wind. I like Maverick McNeely being a great putter and just being able to box putts for par when he needs to, especially at that ownership. I mean, the guy's been fantastic. The last 24 rounds he's played, he's made 88% of his cuts, which is one of the best, safety ratings in the field. Love what's going on there with the ownership perspective. And then a little bit of, like Davis Riley at 17-ish% is also very intriguing because I love it when a player shows immediate signs of progress after they change an aspect of their game, aka his caddy. You've seen some improvement on Davis Riley's performances in the last, since the API. I guess he missed the players, but he's playing well with the new caddy on his bag. He finished T8, which he hasn't done in a long time with the new caddy. So it goes back to a course where he finished second last year, which I think is driving a lot of his ownership. But I love that caddy narrative. And, he's a really talented player. He just needed that maybe guidance from whatever area of his game. So, yeah.
Any group of players that you are comfortable being underweight on compared to your early ownership projections in this range?
By underweight, I'm just probably not going to play Justin Sun, Wyndham Clark.
It's annoying too, right? Because it all fits so well. Yeah. I believe if we were to give an advantage on Wednesday to a wave time, I believe the afternoon wave of day one of Thursday also has an advantage, and tees off then as well. So, and honestly, it all fits, but I agree. Like if you start building with like Spieth, Fleetwood, and then you fit him in at 8-9, because that is honestly arguably too cheap. It's a lot of leveraging you have to do with your last three guys. Exactly.
And what we've learned, I think, a little bit is you can really get exposed to the chalk at the top, because those are the best players, right? Like the likelihood of Spieth bombing out versus a Justin Suh at marginal ownership discrepancies is a little less likely, touch wood, but I don't know, you got to pick your battles, and I think I've planted my flag with Spieth there, so I'm going to be dodging all these guys. And it's Florida. We've got all this water off the fairways, in this wind, people are going to be hitting water balls. 1 or 2 inches makes the biggest of differences. So I'll take that ownership pivoting and do that all week from like the 9K range down.
Given how tough this course is, given the win, yes. Just remember, everyone, leverage everywhere. It usually stands the test of time in DFS, but especially at these types of courses and golf. That's why I love golf, because the GPP bros usually come out ahead. Moving on to the 7Ks with you. The second outright pick I made, which tells you I'm yet again going to be overweight on this player in DFS, is none other than Johnny Vegas himself at 7,700, especially given his form on long approach shots. We know he's long off the tee, but again, we're expecting him to tee down. And remember, with a discounted Betsperts Golf subscription right now, you can get access to those stats because Ron includes them in his model on his Wednesday write-up for everyone. Numbers and rankings about how players fare when they tee down, how they play in strong wind courses. Ron has all that stuff, which is why I was hoping he'd be here, but nonetheless, he got busy, so no worries. And then, of course, Bean at 7-9, Sebastian Yeager playing well lately at 7-8, Nate Lashley 7-6, Will Gordon 7-5, Alex Smalley, I think, will get some ownership at 7-4. Lots and lots of players here. Ryan Gerard also stands out in my model too. So who is standing out in the 7K range for you?
I'm loving Benny On this week. If you take a look at his short course history, he's driving off the tee on these shorter courses where he has to hit the irons. He plays fantastically well at PGA National, which I think can kind of say is a similar comp to this, and that they played that only 3 weeks ago, and he played quite nicely until Sunday. And he's around the green play. John is just so good in this field. He's one of the best there. Makes a bunch of birdies, and he's a great, short game specialist when it comes to around the green play. The putting is a big problem sometimes, but I love him at this price. Nick Taylor is a guy that I'll keep going back to. He He hit a ball into the wood, not into the water. It was like hanging on a post in rotted wood. And that was just so humiliating to me because I had a lot of Nick Taylor last week and he missed the cut, but I'll be going back to him. Robbie Shelton plays medium golf courses really well. And he's around the green play is just pretty sharp. And the approach play too is just right there. So you got good iron player, good around the greens, and he's $7,500. EVR's got some fantastic approach play from far away. He's one of the best in that range there. He's going to be coming in rather low owned too. He hasn't been on tour for a hot minute. And then Sam Ryder. I got to outright on Sam Ryder. He is the second best putter in the field. And the guy's just out here playing fantastic golf at elevated events, John. Like, he's been playing in these big boy events and finishing inside the top 40 and almost won the Farmers a few weeks ago. So, like, everything that's going on with Sam Ryder right now, his whole game is just changing, and his approach play as well. Looks like it's a bit shoddy, but we've come from API, the players. One or two bad shots can really throw out your whole approach metrics, and I know he's a good approach player, and his long iron play is also pretty sharp. So Sam Ryder is going to be a significant, I'm telling you now, he's my flag plant in the $70,000 range.
Okay, I mentioned Johnny Vegas. I have a second flag plant. So I think I've already mentioned 3 flag plants. That's already too much information for this show.
Yeah, we've got lots of flags.
I also came into once I got done researching everything, Akshay Bhatia stands out quite a bit. I'm curious what you have on early ownership projections, because over the last 3 months, so last 20 rounds, Bhatia is second in strokes gained on approach among this field this week, 1.3 strokes on approach in that time. Where do you have him coming in at?
Yeah, he's sitting at about 8-9% for me right
now.
Oh,
baby.
Which is nice.
Overweight.
Which is nice. But, once people, I think he's a very popular play, and I don't see him being there. That's in my opinion. But also, like, if you got a flag, plant your flag. What would you stop at for Akshay? 12,
17, 18.
17.
Okay. Yeah. And we don't think he's going to get there, right?
No, I doubt he gets there, especially with, Joel Damon's sitting right around him. Will Gordon's there. So I think you'll be fine. He's risky to me. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of Akshay. I'm just kind of going to let you do your thing there.
Okay, well, I do like him a lot. Ryan Gerard, as I mentioned earlier, is another player that stood out. Do you have any information on him? I don't know if he's going to come in high rostered, given that, again, I'm expecting David Lingmerth, who played well this past week, and others in that lower 7K range to kind of soak up some of these mid to high 7K guys.
Yeah, Ryan Gerard's sitting at 10-ish%, yeah. And I think what's happened is he's only played in 2 events on the PGA Tour, and he's got four rounds of strokes gained metrics, and his approach play is like number 1 in the field after just a single event, which is a problem, right? You don't want to be, anything can happen in a single tournament, and I think that's what pops in a lot of people's models is his approach play. He could easily be one of the, I don't know what he did on Corn Ferry Tour. There's no stats and things available to us there, but he's a good golfer, but I don't think he's the best iron player in the field. So that's going to be somewhere that I'm totally okay skipping out on that ownership there. Definitely just go to like a Ryan Armour, maybe, if we want to play Ryans, like Ryan Armour's got some nice course history here. So yeah, I'm out on Ryan Gerard, potentially in on Eric Cole, who's at $7,300 and got a very similar kind of repertoire, great short game and on approach, man. This guy is so solid when it comes to that. And he's a guy I feel a little bit more confident in compared to Ryan Gerard.
Let's move on to the 6Ks and hear about Ryan Armour, because over the last calendar year, Armour is actually 4th in this field in par 3 scoring. And we know that matters for this course, given that there's an extra par 3 hole on it.
Correct. Yeah. And his course history for a guy that's $6,600 and having played like the 58 worth strokes gained entering the week is actually 28th course history wise. So he's got a really good feel around this golf course. It suits his game. He's monumentally short off the tee. So like this kind of a venue is perfect for him. He can just hit driver when everyone's hitting 3 irons and just keep doing that. He's also not too shabby at putting. So if he's $6,600 and 1% owned, then that's just taking Speed's ownership and halving it basically for me. So I'm totally okay with that. And I love his course history. This is one of the courses that has a pretty reasonable course history correlation, not necessarily like a Augusta or anything, but it's just a few notches below that.
Who else stands out for you in terms of course history?
Course history wise, Russell Knox, but I'm out on him. I cannot handle how he hasn't finished inside the top 40 in 7 starts. Yeah. So he's just no good. His putter is leaking. Zach Johnson and Luke Donald, the 2 Ryder Cup captains, both got very solid course history, and it suits their game. If you think about both of them, these short little popper grinder kind of guys, short game specialists. Love those 2 here. And then just scooting down the board a little bit more, we got Austin Smotherman, who's got some nice course history. Mm-hmm. And then Wesley Bryan seems to be popping up a little bit at $6,300 at 1% owned. He's got the 13th best course history on this course. So that's risky though, like he's obviously not playing that good right now.
I am currently looking at my dummies, and I have Zach Blair loaded up and probably what most considered too many lineups right now at 6,200 as well. And again, Ron and I, we toss this around every show, but we play 6K a little differently. And I actually have started gravitating more towards Ron's approach and just trying to find the guys who can make the cut, like experienced players who we think can make the cut in the 6Ks and going from there. Whereas what I typically gravitated to in the past was losing a stat. Just like, okay, I know I'm sacrificing, I'm eating something here, I just don't know what. And that kind of approach leads me to Blair at 6,200, since basically he's one of the best around the green players in this field, top 40 on tour this year, and approach shots from 175 plus yards out. So we think he can be accurate on long approach shots as well. It's just a matter of that putting wise. It's been, and honestly, his last 2 tournaments, which again, chalk that up, could be just short recency bias. It doesn't matter, but he's been pretty much a disaster when he reaches the green. However, I'm willing to take a chance on that at 6,200 because it allows me to afford to do some other things in my lineup, and he'll be 1 or 2% in a volatile field. So I don't mind eating that at all.
I'm looking at my salary ranger and like on 23 rows, and I've got 6,200 to 6,000, and everyone is 0% except for Zach Blair is 1%. So that must be you that's driving that. I love that around the green play there for sure. He's awesome, and he's got pretty good proximities from 175 to 200. So that's a nice range to hone in on. And then one more person I want to mention is Rory Sabatini, 6th best course history in this field. Very good at scrambling. So we'll see what the ex-South African, current Slovakian, soon to be American / Russian spy, I don't know. He likes to jump nationalities, but I like his history, yeah.
And if you want to chase Sabatini for course history instead, then 6,100. You can just go right down instead of taking a chance on Zach Blair. Now that we've moved past the tiers, who are your 2 favorite golfers you think you will have the highest rostered in this field this week?
Sam Ryder, definitely at $7,300. I love that putting from him. And then I'm going to be aggressive with Maverick McNeely this week. If he's going to be single figures ownership, he's too good of a golfer coming back from an injury. I'm willing to take that chance in a field like this. The wind's going to be blowing so crazily. Might as well have a guy that can potentially contend for a win at this venue at 8% owned. Why not? Best putter in the world.
And I'll also be checking on the wind to see if it's consistently, as we mentioned, 16 to 21 miles per hour, because if it's like that throughout the day, which it's kind of showing on Thursday, then that means it's a wash. That means everyone's playing into the same wind. So if people are then going to chase a certain wave because they think they have an advantage, like I may just gobble up the leftover golfers that everyone's ignoring because they're worried about the wind when everyone's playing to the wind. So it's on even ground. Just something to think about ahead of Thursday morning lock. And as mentioned earlier, I will be overweight for sure on Justin Rose and Johnny Vegas right now. Bhatia and Blair also standing out for me. What about your favorite bet for the Valspar?
My favorite bet for the Valspar is Matthew Fitzpatrick top 20 at plus 110. Matthew Fitzpatrick has finished inside the top 20 in 67% of his starts, and he's getting plus 110. So the last time I did this kind of bet on Fitz, he missed the cut at Pebble Beach. So we're going back to the well. We'll see if I can get him right this time. But, I mean, he's got easily the best consistency and upside in this field.
I will tip Noonan's betting card for everyone and say, because I saw it and I agreed, FanDuel allows you to have finishing position parlays. And I agree with Noonan and betting Justin Suh and Justin Rose to both T40 at plus 148 on FanDuel right now. Terrific pairing. And as he mentions in that article on betspertsgolf.com, Gary Woodland, you can tack him in if we have confidence in his putting right now, which I pretty much do, and move that parlay up to plus 338 if interested. All T40 finishes.
Okay.
With that, Byron, anything else you want to tell everyone about building for the Valspar before we get out of here?
No, just as always, Florida courses, pivot your face off, attack that leverage like we've been preaching pretty much for the last half an hour. Enjoy it. Enjoy the Spieth ride if you get on that train. And, it's going to be a fun few weeks. So just enjoy the nice field that doesn't have a Scotty Scheffler or John Rahm winning 5 out of the last 7 events. So we're blessed. And
nowadays, the Spieth ride is really just all about whether he makes putts or not, because that's been the bugaboo of late. And it's been
Florida swing, baby.
Of
it's
late
coming
too.
back.
But yeah, if the putts even move to average among the field, like he'll tear up the field because he's doing great everywhere else.
Yes.
That's what has me worried and not playing him at 27%, honestly.
Yeah. If you look at the 5 times he's played, he's gained in 4 of the 5 times. So he's got some good vibes on his greens. We'll see. I don't know.
And as Ron mentioned, Burns, in terms of driving accuracy, finished 102nd last year and won this tournament because, again, the accuracy, it's just a wash for everyone. Everyone cancels out one another because it's so hard to be accurate when you're teeing down off this course.
Correct. Yep. But 3/4 inch, can make a difference, John.
Everything else we talked about can be found in depth in Ron's article at the site. And we will be back next week for what I always consider to be a fun conversation, since match play consists of understanding the bracket and then building your lineups in quadrants. Again, we will go in depth to that last week. It's one of my favorite tournaments to play for DFS. Until then, good luck this week. And remember, be a little bit kinder than what's required. We'll see you next time.